Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. John Riggio, our tennis great here joining us. Excited to have him also as an amazing architect. He wears many hats, and I'm excited to learn about his history in tennis and the contributions he's made and the sponsors he's had. And he's a legend, and it's excited to have him here. John, please say hello to everyone today.
Hello, how are you? My name is John Riggio, and today I'm going to talk about some experiences from the past about my tennis playing, my pro tennis career. And so the last video I was talking about an important tournament final where I won the whole match and the whole tournament and everything. And I took a few minutes to just try to remember what was happening back then. I don't have anything in writing about it, but I did remember some important things about that whole event. And one of them is the tournament was called Fisher Open. And this was in the middle of the summer of 1987.
Wow.
And the reason it's called Fisher is because there is a tennis racket company called Fisher, and they were willing to advertise. And that's the banners around the courts had the word Fisher on them with their symbol for the tennis rackets and things like that. And that was really important. And I think that tournament also was really a very good quality tournament. Since I'm there playing at the tennis center, I'm playing on Court 33, and I'm also playing on the Alley Pond where the tournament took place. All of the players that ended up playing in the U.S. Open in just a few months in that same year, they were playing in this tournament.
Wow.
So it was pretty good. And so some of all the names that were there that was on the 87 Open, they were playing in this tournament. It was really big. I think the finalist, the one I played against, he was also one of the players in the 87 U.S. Open.
Okay.
And so he played some of the other people. I remember I played some people before. I remember one player I played in that tournament, I think was a Mats Wilander. I, of course, passed him to get into the final. There were some other players. Not exactly certain which players or which game it was. And then on the other side of the court, I'm trying to remember his name right now, but he also had to play the other top players that you saw in the 87 U.S. Open. So the match was a good quality tournament, and I was able to win that, and it was really big. I think some very important things were that since Richard Branson was my sponsor, and they have this interesting thing in the tennis, whenever you change sponsors, they have a new tennis name for some reason. So my new tennis name, they just made it a sound spelling. They just called John Riggio, which is a pretty good name. I had originally using that name years ago. When I went through some initial names, that was pretty good, just like a sound spelling in my name. You pick out the extra double letters, and it's very simple. You probably don't even have to really do any paperwork for that kind of name. You just say it's a sound spelling of the name. So that was very good. So the paperwork at the time said John Riggio. Then another aspect of the whole thing with John Riggio is when you're playing a telephone game, you're calling.
Yeah.
And nothing is in writing. So I don't know how they really spelled the name. I just assume it was Rigo. I don't know if they put an E in there or something.
Okay.
I'm not certain, but it was something like that was happening. But that is what they did, was they just used that name, John Riggio, at that time. The reason I was pretty definite about that is because my girlfriend, Delilah, she had bought tickets, and she explained that my name was really spelled misspelled. And then I just had to think about it now, and I know what the misspelling is. It was just the new tennis name, and it was just
great.
Sound spell. So that's what was happening there. And so at the that whole tennis tournament was really good. That tennis tournament included the players in '87, which was Ivan Lendl, Steph, and Edberg were in that same tournament. So it was a very big quality tournament, and it was before the U.S. Open. And I think one thing about the tournament also was this was really like a really nice point for me and Lila, my girlfriend, because when I invited her and the whole thing with the final match came down, she was able to come there to the Alley Pond, meet me at the locker rooms, and we had a very nice thing of coming out to the area where you would enter into the court, and they had professional photographers take photographs of us. So there are pictures here of me and my girlfriend, Delilah there, very nice professional photography. And so they have photographs there somewhere.
I want to see them. We got to find them.
Yes. So I think that was very good because I think I was telling some stories about her, but this was really very successful.
Yes.
There's no downturn to anything on this particular tournament. Everything went great. She was there. The whole thing was a big win for her. I won big, and then she thought it was great. And I think at this time also was really good. After the whole tournament was over, I went to then take the photo session with Richard Branson with the trophy. And I think there I was able to finally talk to him, went over all the different things about the tournament. And really, he was just congratulating me. He thought I was overall a great winner with this whole thing. He was really amazed with that, so that was excellent.
And those pictures we have to find, yeah.
Yes. They probably have a record of them someplace. And I think there was some other nice things about this. I think after the match, I went home, and I think it was I think it was the next day. My neighbor came out, talked to me for a few minutes, and he said he saw me win the whole tournament on television. So he saw that on television, and he, of course, congratulated me. Plus, I described some things about the tournament, and he thought it was amazing. He was always watching me on television playing tennis, so he was really onto that. I think the name of John Riggio was pretty good because they could see the name, they could identify knowing that must be me, so that was also good. And I think at this time there was some more good things going on, like with my tennis pro shop sponsor. I had talked to him about this win with the Fisher Open, and he gave me a free racket. So that was really good. So that was a very nice present from him. And so that worked out really good. And so I think this match also was really televised on really...
Do you want to show us this match?
In fact, I don't have any...
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you wanted to share your screen. Okay, perfect. I thought it looks like you're typing. I'm like, I don't see anything. Just making sure.
No, but that match was televised.
Okay.
My neighbor had just confirmed that with me, and I think that was good. So I think that particular match was excellent, had a nice name to it, everyone played in it, and I think that was really, wasn't at the end of that whole thing.
Yeah.
It was really like just at more like this is the start of it, because the rest of those months what I did was I played more tournaments. There were more tournament wins. I'm trying to remember some number. I remember it was at least 5, and I took, they always take a picture with the trophy with me after winning the tournaments. And so that was very good. And and then there was, of course, the supervisor there was doing pretty good. As far as all the tennis things, he was doing good. He was there. He'd always have a glass of wine. They would always give me a cheer whenever I would win a match. I mean, so that was really something very interesting. And so that was good. And then I was describing really towards the end of that piece of history with Go at the Alley Pond was their decision to move that. Now, I think the thing with the Alley Pond, like I was describing, having someone to talk as an intermediary between me and the sponsor with Richard Branson. And what happened there is I did call them, and they told me very clearly that someone bought the contract and they're going to switch everything over. There was nothing to discuss. There was no problems. Wow. But I think there was that whole gap in time is what I was getting at, was more like someone more like a publicist. I would really call and maybe put together some more things. I think at the tennis center, I was given some advice by Martina Navratilova. She was just giving me some advice about some things.
Wait, what was the name?
The female player, Martina Navratilova.
Yeah. Okay, I know of her.
So she used because all the females used to play there, and she was giving me some advice on doing some more public speaking, maybe having people come to the tennis center, showing them my new tennis center and things like that.
Cool.
And making more, say, like news articles. I think, like, for instance, at the end of that tournament, I think having a little more of publicists to maybe put some press release, an official press release, maybe it would get put in some more newspapers. Now, what that is that has to do with just the player's side. The sponsor doesn't necessarily need me to really be in the newspapers to really to win in these games. It might even help if no one's bothering me with things like that too.
Yeah.
Become a distraction. So at this point, the idea was really to try to figure out how to do that. Now, I think my education, and even when I was there, I was in college at the time. My education didn't really support some idea of how to really publicize myself. So I think that was one problem. And then I think the idea of hiring someone to do it was a little difficult. But I think these are some things that they were going over. And I think like some things like that were sort of, players might wonder like why you wouldn't have an agent, why we wouldn't have a publicist and things like that. And really, it's that was one interesting point about that. So that was the reason why I was sort of saying of why I would have someone talk to them, was sort of to try to get a little personal things going. I think I had some ideas also. Vitas Gervais was suggesting me putting some ads in the newspaper to get a little teaching going. Maybe I could even teach cottage kids. Now, even though my contract was signed, I still had support from Clemson University. They were still backing me. And they stayed in my contract for a long time, going all the way to when the contract was sold to Mitsubishi Japan.
Wow.
So they were backing me that whole time. So that was like another line of support I was getting from Clemson. So this whole thing, they're trying to put this together, was just some things that I was looking at. And I think overall they might have liked it. I think they would like it. And that is just one thing I did. In fact, I did call around and got a few things. I think I talked about the one I did in Hawaii with the appearance there and the autographs and things like that. But I think that whole idea was really to try to build that. And I think you would really try to build that as a player, like at your own personal business. That would become like your own little personal business. The whole thing with playing and sponsors is a whole other thing. They did put together autograph signing days, advertised it, and things like that over the years there. I think I described some of them. One was in Manhattan, and I did 2 of those there. So those are really just something that they did, which was pretty good. And that is what I was looking at that time, was really trying to slowly build that idea up. And so that was one thing that was happening.
Wow.
I did have support from also Helena Sokova, who I had helped because she was there in the U.S. And I think on her initial trip to the U.S., they didn't have any money for her. Somehow the money did not get to her, which became like a problem for her, that she was in danger of having problems, going homeless. And I helped her out with some to cover the bills with some things like that, gave her some money. And, but she was also a star player. I mean, she's another big player in tennis, and she was able to help me out, watch the matches of those tournaments there, and things worked pretty good with that. And so she was there, able to root me on, and she was able to even to help me warm up on the court. So she'd get her racket out there, she'd warm me up on the court playing before we had a match. And that was really a big help from her. So she was doing really good. And then I think just over the years, I checked back on her and I see that her career continued on. And she was able to really get a lot back in Switzerland. She returned to Switzerland, and that's her permanent location. And I see she's doing excellent there with the tennis. And but at that chapter in when I was at the Pond, she was able to really help me there, get involved with the whole thing, with the watching the matches, seeing me win those tournaments, seeing me get the photographs with those trophies. This is in addition to the ones with Richard Branson. So that was really big. And so I think that's what's happening there. So there was that whole thing of like building my own center, sort of like I had like the tennis club.
Okay.
It's really good. And I think what was happening with playing pro tennis, with a lot of things with tennis and things, I felt they were someone was trying to shut things down a little on me. And so trying to build that center, even if it's with some publicity, was really sort of important. They would always reinforce that, and they always used to also encourage me to find like certain type of things, like you said, like loopholes or like a savvy of doing things, where maybe someone would take some pictures of their own, keep them for later, and I could always use them, put them on the internet, put them in an article, things like that. So I think things like that were going on. All the official photographs, the professional pictures, I really have a problem finding those. I don't know how to find any pictures, but seems to be plenty of them. I think when I was there were some different like photo sessions going of me on the court playing. They sent a professional photographer there taking pictures of them, myself. And then there was one interesting thing about the whole thing with the photo publicity is they used to have the paparazzi come to take pictures of the different players, male players or female players. And I was really the decision maker on if the paparazzi photographers are allowed to come in and take pictures. And I said, yes, it's okay. So I think whenever I say yes to pictures like that, I always thought I was always getting less pictures for some reason. I don't know why, because I didn't know where those photographs were going. I didn't know what magazine they were going in, but I let them take pictures because I think photography pictures are somewhat valuable. Someone's coming and taking pictures of you. Maybe they'll put your name down, location. And I think that was helpful, although I haven't been able to really locate all those pictures. But they were there, coming in, taking some photographs. They didn't seem to bother anybody. I didn't see them really talking to anyone. They just took some pictures and would leave the Aripan Tennis Center, walk out the door. So that's what was happening at that point. And I mean, that was really interesting.
Wow.
And I think one interesting thing was with the tennis centers. So the tennis centers were very interesting. Each tennis center I had, I would have like they'd ask me questions, maybe while I'm playing there, they'd ask me questions of improving the tennis centers, things like that. And I think there was a few interesting things about the tennis centers. I think one of them was the player Guillermo Vidas, which I was comparing because he had a #1 contract, #1 player, and he's visited like all of my tennis centers. So he's always friendly with me. So whenever he came down to the tennis courts, he came down to at the time court 33, and he knew that they were building the Ali Pond, and we had discussed what's going on with the Ali Pond, how it's going to look. Mm-hmm. And I think with his experience, because he's 14 years older than me, he was just explaining and having like 2 locker rooms, entrance, 2 bleachers at minimum, 1 for each side, and of course a nice court and everything may be covered. And I think those things will really very interesting. And whenever they ask me questions, I'd always forward that information to see if how we can improve it. I think that sort of came about, didn't come about on Ali Pond because very interesting. Ali Pond was sort of made, designed by someone who was just designing on a trend with the building and a tennis bubble. This was still a trend starting like in 1975 of using tennis bubbles. And this was really the trend of having it. But I think a lot of people, they sort of like the idea of just having the building and the two bleachers. The cover over it might not have been what they thought was really like a good spot. I think even starting off in Jericho on the high school courts, I have pictures of them. I could show you some pictures today. Is it had like a 2-story brick building, and there were always students in there, teachers in there, and they could watch my matches. They used to watch matches. They used to cheer at my matches. And then you would have the courts there. They'd have some bleachers courts. And then there was space also for the television van to drive up and put the boom up and take
the boom
video.
Yeah.
Yes, and then they could take video of it. And let me just get that online here. Okay, so I think if you look here, and you see that this is just the front of the school. Let me just go back. Okay, so this is a photograph. This is a recent photo I took off of like Google, and it just shows a picture, shows a court, and you see the 2-story brick building. So it has all windows. So I think there's a lot of students there. This is a middle school, high school, so this wasn't too bad. And in between the court and the building is a parking lot where they used to put bleachers. The CBS van could drive over there. Used to put the boom up and was videotaping the matches. This is where my matches. Now this has 2 sections. Of course, it has one here to the right side, and there's some court to the left side. Okay. Originally, those were clay courts, but they asked over them eventually, and they put in the usual hard court like this. Yeah. And so to the left, this was my courts here, usually for the national tournament and also for a lot of early playing when I was young. And then the court to the right, a lot of times we used to play the players after I was ranked 500, moving up, was on this right side of the court. But it was pretty good here. And so this isn't really too bad as far as like having like a building there with people watching in the building. And then they have bleachers around here, and you see on here it has that windbreaker on the fence. So the windbreaker on the fence is pretty good. Sometimes they put some advertising on some of the matches, similar to what I had explained before. So that is pretty good. Let me see if I have another picture. Okay, this is another one. Now this shows that building to the left side. They have the pool in there, so it's pretty good. It has they have the drafting room up here. So there's plenty of people watching over here. So this wasn't too bad in some ways. That this had all these people in the windows watching, and there's room for bleachers. There are bleachers to the left side. You put bleachers on the end, and on this side with the video truck. So that is really where I had started, and I played there for a number of years. And all the pros liked playing on the sport. They all used to come there and play on this court. It wasn't too bad. So I think that is pretty good. And let me see if I can, close this. And let me go to...
we have to end the show. I'm sorry, John.
Okay, let me just unshare this for a minute. Okay.
I hate when that happens.
Okay, yes. So I think I wanted to really tell you the rest of that story with that Fisher Open, where I won the Fisher Open in 1987. It was really big. And then I just explained some really additional stories with that. I think that is really a good story and really some interesting information about the whole thing with the tournament and whole Body Palm location.
Oh, well, thank you, John. How do we contact you and your fan page?
Yeah, just go to John Riggio Pro Tennis Player, and you can like the page. You can send me a message, and there's all kinds of photographs there and a link to my page that has all kinds of information, tournaments and experiences on it. So it's a lot of fun to watch.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You have a fantastic day, John. Looking forward to our next time together. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.